We live on Earth in a relatively safe period of time. Of course, modern humanity is at mortal risk. Military conflicts, revolutions in countries, hunger in the world, natural disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis and eruptions. But this is not very radical compared to what happened during the life of prehistoric people. At the time, prehistoric man was smart enough. He wore a piece of mammoth skin around his mighty waist, and he fearlessly fought the saber-toothed tigers. He went hunting and lit a fire. And he taught his children to survive in a ruthless world that was filled not only with insidious predators, but also with unpleasant surprises from Mother Nature. In ancient legends and drawings in the caves, you can read a lot of strange and surprising things. The Aztecs cherished their ancient chronicles, inherited from their distant ancestors. Finds say, heavy rain of flaming fiery stones, and blood began to fall from the sky. It fell on the houses, and the houses burst into flames. It fell on the forests, and swallowed the forests. People were looking for shelter, but their clothes were on fire and they were dying. Falling hot rocks shook the planet. When it was all over, thick dark clouds covered the earth for a long 25 years. This chronicle indicates a massive fall of meteorites, as a result of which a real apocalypse began on Earth. To date, we can observe isolated cases of the fall of small meteorites. For example, in 1908, the Tunguska meteorite fell on the territory of Russia. In the early morning, a large fireball flew over the territory of the Krasnoyarsk territory at fantastic speed, which a few seconds later fell into the Taiga. The sound of the explosion was heard at a distance of more than 1,000 kilometers. The blast wave was recorded by seismographs around the world. The power of the explosion was 1040 megatons intent equivalent, which corresponds to the energy of an average hydrogen bomb. The explosion knocked down trees over an area of 2,000 square kilometers. A man who was 70 kilometers from the epicenter of the explosion told the following. Suddenly, in the north, the sky split in two, and a fire appeared in it wide and high above the forest, which engulfed the entire northern part of the sky. At that moment, I felt so hot as if my shirt was on fire. I wanted to tear and throw off my shirt, but the sky slammed shut, and there was a strong blow. I was thrown 3 meters off the porch. After the blow, there was such a knock as if stones were falling from the sky or firing from cannons. The earth trembled, and when I lay on the ground, I pressed my head, fearing that the stones would not break my head. At that moment, when the sky opened up, a hot wind swept from the north, like from a cannon, which left traces in the form of paths on the ground. Then it turned out that many of the panes in the windows were broken, and the iron tab for the door lock was broken near the barn. Subscribe to our channel, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. Don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss new and interesting releases from our channel. 13,000 years ago, ancient people did not even suspect that something terrible could happen to them. At the time, the era of global drought that lasted 100,000 years was ending. The drought was so severe that trees could only grow near the equator. And it's very unusual. Ancient people already lived everywhere, including America and Australia. But they lived so badly that it could be called survival. Outside the equatorial zone, during the Ice Age, semi-deserts began to feed only small groups of wandering hunters. The northern steppes were the main source of food for humans. Whole herds of mammoths lived there. Temperatures in the tundra steppes ranged from 50 in summer to 50 in winter. It was difficult to survive in such conditions, even with fire and clothing made of skins. Nevertheless, it was the steppes, where the climate was harsh, but at least food was available in abundance, turned out to be the most populated territory. Approximately 12,800 years ago, something changed the global climate very dramatically, dropping the average annual temperature by 5 degrees at once, and very quickly, in just a year or two. What could it be? American scientists have found the answer to this question. They explored the layers of soil and found nanodiamonds. The first nanodiamonds were discovered in the Soviet Union, at the sites of nuclear tests. We understand how they were formed after a nuclear explosion. Everything is very simple. The explosion compressed the carbon particle and turned out to be a nanodiamond. But 13,000 years ago, there was no atomic bomb. Then there were only mammoths, and they could not arrange a nuclear explosion. Nanodiamonds are available over the world. Diamonds are estimated to be 60 million years old. 65 million years ago, a 10-kilometer asteroid made a real nuclear apocalypse. But what happened 13,000 years ago? Nanodiamonds located within a radius of 50 million square kilometers indicate multiple explosions with the power of an atomic bomb. And the platinum dust found in the same place is for the fall of a comet or asteroid. Ancient Aztec tales say that thick dark clouds covered the earth for a long 25 years. A worthy reason for a 1,000-year cold snap. The sun warms weekly through clouds of dust and soot, but scientists have not found a giant crater. So, almost 13,000 years ago, the asteroid did not fall to the ground. What has spread nanodiamonds all over the planet? A group of scientists put forward a version that it was a giant comet. It's a sky comet, not an asteroid. The fact is that comets are like asteroids, consist of snow and ice, as well as a certain amount of stones of small diameter. Its composition, unlike homogeneous asteroids, is always different for different points. Somewhere more than one metal, somewhere another. Of course, when a plane is bombarded by a comet, the picture will be similar. A comet, or rather, many pieces of a comet, when it enters the atmosphere, scattered throughout the Earth. Because the comet itself is like a snowman, that, high temperatures, begins to melt and fall apart quickly. When hitting the Earth, pieces of the comet did not leave craters, because these chunks weren't hard like heavy metal chunks of an asteroid. According to scientists, the diameter of the comet was at least 100 square kilometers. Witnesses of the impact of a comet on the Earth were ancient people. For them it was terrible. Before the apocalypse, the ancient man looked at the sky and watched an incredibly beautiful sight. Two suns, one of which was the usual yellow color, and the new sun was blue. The blue sun grew bigger and more beautiful every day. In the eyes of the ancient ancestor of people, there was no fear, but there was curiosity and admiration for the beauty of the new celestial body. But after such a heavenly spectacle, the most terrible thing began. The sun split into thousands of gigantic pieces that rapidly fell to the ground. Upon entering the atmosphere, clouds of snow and ice with large stones exploded and turned into steam. The cobblestones glowed red-hot and became a fiery rain. Particularly large pieces of ice flew to the ground and set off explosions of several thousand megatons. This is absolutely identical to nuclear explosions. Ancient mankind experienced all the delights of a nuclear apocalypse. As a result of monstrous blows, an unthinkable amount of soot rose into the air. There was much more soot than there now if a nuclear war had taken place. The Ice Age returned to the planet and lasted more than 1,000 years. How did the people of the Stone Age survive during the many explosions comparable in scale to a nuclear war? There is only one answer. Most of ancient mankind perished. The stories handed down to descendants from their ancestors testify to a real apocalypse. The flames spread throughout the sky and did not touch only the people on the highest peaks. It was so hot that all the lakes in the world evaporated and dried up literally before our eyes. Even the rocks were red hot. Giant animals and evil people burned where they stood. There were also such myths similar to the truth. The great shaman called on his tribe to go to the nearest swamp and smear themselves with mud and thereby save their lives from a falling star. Some laughed and did not believe him. Only a few families listened to the shaman and went to the swamps. This was their salvation. The recipe for covering the body with mud worked. They survived and founded a new tribe. The method only seems primitive. In fact, wet mud protects both from burns during close explosions and from the hot air of steppe fires. It seems that people 13,000 years ago were no more stupid than today. Many of them were able to survive events equal in severity to a nuclear bombing. To think and be in time to smear yourself with mud in a swamp, or build the first tree-earth shelter from super-powerful explosions, you had to quickly move your brains. Apparently, it was not in vain that the people of the stone each had an average brain 5% larger than ours. Therefore, we can say with confidence that the ancient man also had ingenuity and managed to survive in a nuclear catastrophe. If you liked the video, put your finger up and leave a comment. Subscribe if you haven't already and the bell so you don't miss new and interesting releases from the Real Unreal channel.